Hello and welcome to the next lecture where I'll be talking about live groups. And live groups may sound a bit disturbing or difficult to grasp, but the concept is you define a group which is maintained externally of your current scene. And what I mean by that is you can have, for instance, the render settings, which we have here. We can actually have that thing work in a live group. And I will be showing you how to set this up. So it's actually fairly straightforward. You can just convert anything to a live group very easily. But I will be showing you a few ways how to create one. So the first method I will want to show you is you create a node called live group, and this one expects a source. Currently we don't have anything created, but how it works is I can actually, if I just save this, I just save the scene, I hit Ctrl N for a new scene like that, and I'll just create maybe an AGS node and maybe a render settings node like that. I'll just hook these two guys up like that, and I'll just save this. I hit now Ctrl and S, and I'm just saving this to my, let's just create a new one called live groups like that, and I'll just store this under render settings like that. So this file, which is just empty with except these two nodes, is saved under render settings. So if I go back and open our main one, which is this one, we still have that live group node. So if I go now to source, I choose browse and I go to our location live groups and click that render settings, the contents in here should be actually updated. Let's see if it does do it. If I hit reload, let's see, there's nothing in here. So why is that? The problem is it has not been published and it will not work like that as expected. So let's head back over to that location. Because it's a Katana file, it will not actually work like that. So don't save it, go back to our render settings and live groups, and now what we need to do is we can just group this, or I think we can actually also just save it as a live group. Let's see if that works, just to be better safe than sorry. Let's see if this works. Live group. Okay, that does not like it. Anyway, so let's just do edit and hit G, and now we can actually go to this and hit the wrench tool and hit convert to live group, and we can just again just save this, publish this, and now I'd want to save it as a live group, and we just publish this as render settings like so. So now the contents here is stored under that location. So if I go back now to our main one, which is looked at via 1, and I change my source to that live group, let's hit browse and choose that icon instead, the live group one, hit accept, and now we can actually see the content of this, and you can see we have these locks. Just what this means is I cannot edit them, I can only read them, read only nodes. And this is now our live group. We can actually edit the contents from right in here, do some changes, and then we can just say publish changes. So let's say I add a prune node in here, just hook it up, and now if I do wrench tool and publish and finish editing contents, we can just overwrite this, create a new version or whatever you prefer, hit accept, hit overwrite, and now the live group is locked again, and now we have the prune node within this. So this is kind of how it works. And as I said, there's two ways to create it. So one is you create a new scene, create a group and convert it like that. Or what I can do now, because I have this group created already, I can just hit edit, hit the wrench icon, convert to a live group, go to this wrench again, and now I can just publish this. And I will just overwrite the one we did right now. I'm just publishing on top of this and overwrite this. So now I can actually finish, let's just finish, I'll save and finish, hit accept, overwrite again. And now you can see that this live group is finished editing and its contents is now locked. even though it's locked, I can still switch the render settings, and it should all pick up at still. Oh, I messed up the inputs here, so this is why it's not working, but it's a good test. Because it's broken, I can just hit edit, go to the wrench, edit the contents, hit the plus, and just reconnect these little dots like so. So back in action, and now I can just go back to the wrench, publish and finish editing, overwrite this, hit accept, overwrite, and now this connection is fixed. And if I change now my quality to high, we should see that now the high stream is enabled. And this is the beauty of a live group. And you might think, why would you need to do this if it's just you working on this? Obviously, then it does not make so much sense to do that. But it's still a good habit, and you will see this in bigger companies, or actually just in a company, they will have live groups to have artists work the same way. So for, let's say you have 5 people working on a show, you can just have a live group for render settings, or you can have a live group for a certain light rig, and you can just publish that. And whenever you make a change to that, all the live groups in their scenes will be updated automatically, because they read from a file which is on disk. So when you do a change and they reopen or just flush the caches in the scene, they will get this change happening immediately. And it's very powerful, so this needs to be handled with care, because it can actually break quite a few things if you mess it up. And you have seen just before where I had the broken connection, and then you actually have a big problem on the render farm or in your lighting scenes or whatever. And now I want to show you one last thing which might be very interesting for some of you, which is a render settings, or like a live group, which is actually driven by an environment variable. And how that works is you would need to specify that in your batch file, which you set up when you launch Katana, but I will show you how to read it. So let's say you have global render settings, which are defined by a location which is on disk. So what I like to do is I want to go to this location, live groups, and I just want to copy the contents of this to a location which is in my resource folder. So in my resource folder right now, it's under add-ons, it's under resources, and it's in here. So I just want to create a new one called live groups, like that. And in here I can just copy the one which we had before, which lives in live groups, and I delete the Katana one, which was a mistake, and I'll just copy this and paste it into my live groups folder. This will not do anything because live groups is not a predefined folder, so it should be ignored. But in our bat file, if I bring that up, you can now see that we have our add-ons location, but we have not defined our render settings. So let's just create a new variable, call this render settings, like that. You can also type in global if you want that prefix or not, and just type in equals and maybe copy this path. Actually, we actually have everything up till add-ons. So what we can do now is just do a %, 2 percentages add-ons, which brings us to the add-ons directory. And then we can just do a / resources / live groups. Oh, it's actually /. We need to do backslashes. I think it needs to be backslashes, like that. And then we just type render settings dot live group, which is this name of our render settings file. So this is now storing this file path into this variable. So if I save this and I launch Katana now from my Katana 3.1 shortcut, like that, it will load it up, and then I can show you how to actually read this from within a live group. So I'm opening our previous file, our template, and now we still have this render settings node, which is pointing to that live group folder. So I will just keep this for now just to show you that we get the same exact result because we copied the file. So in this live group, let's just delete this and create a fresh one, live group. And in edit, we can now specify the path. So what we can do, we can obviously go to this location, go to our desktop or whatever, and then we just go to add-ons, resources, live groups, and we point to this. We can do that, but that's not the point of this. So within source, you can type a $sign and just type in that variable name, which is render underscore settings, hit enter. And now what happens if I hit plus, you can see now we get this contents automatically filled in. So this is now reading it from our environment variables, which you have set up in this bat file. So the benefit of this is you can change this somewhere else, and you can only read this in from the bat file if you need it to be. And you can see the contents is exactly the same as this one. So what we can do instead, we can just delete this. Let's just rename this to render settings again. And instead of having it on disk or having it with an absolute path, this path is now defined by a environment variable. And we can now be safe and just delete our live groups folder and just get rid of that, and nothing should really be a problem. Obviously, if other live group nodes were reading this location, it will be a problem. But I'm sure because I've set this up right now, nothing will really go to waste. And you can have live groups everywhere. I would still use them with caution because, as I said, they are dangerous if you don't know what you do, and if you make mistakes, everyone who's reading this live group will get that same mistake you made. So just keep that in mind. But all in all, live groups are very helpful and handy if you want to do quick changes or make sure everyone reads the correct stuff. And a cool thing which would be is AUV creation. So all these things should also live in a live group, but we will talk about this in a later lecture, how we can do that for our macros, for instance. So thank you guys for watching this lecture, and I will see you in the next one.